Lindsey, what's in your lens today?
I'm kind of on the same page with you, with your radar, so let's talk about it. So Democrats are frustrated, and not quietly. The party's donor class is openly questioning whether leadership even has a pulse. After losing the White House and Senate and failing to win back the House, they say the party lacks both direction and a message that sticks. One donor put it bluntly in conversation with The Hill, saying, quote, "We still haven't been able to find our feet, and no one is excited about anything. But I think a lot of people are realizing that if we do nothing, we cede control to Trump, and enough is enough." That's the thesis Democrats can't ignore. Love for the party isn't what's keeping the lights on. It's fear of Donald Trump, now in his second term. That fear is tangible. Donors pointed to a, quote, escalating threat of freedom of speech as a reason they started writing checks again. For some, it was the decision to pull Jimmy Kimmel off the air after his comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. For others, it was Trump's immigration crackdown or even his bizarre statement linking Tylenol almost definitively to autism. As one donor said, quote, "It gets worse every day." But don't mistake fear for loyalty. Another California donor didn't mince words, describing the Democratic Party as, quote, incompetent, arrogant, insular, and tone deaf. The numbers definitely back up that Trump fatigue, though. The Republican National Committee is sitting on $84 million, and the Democrats just $15 million. So they have some work to do. And while some individuals like John Morgan, who's a prominent injury lawyer, tell The Hill they're still cutting the checks, he's also drawn sharp boundaries, saying, quote, "I will only give to a Democrat if they are not identified as a democratic socialist." He went on to say, quote, "The idea of handing a pile of cash to people who spend like drunken sailors is a bad idea." But here's the paradox. While the party brand is battered, a Quinnipiac poll shows only 30% of Americans view Democrats favorably right now. That's actually the lowest rating since 2008. Democratic voters themselves are actually fired up. According to a CNN SSRS poll, 72% of Democratic and Democratic-leaning voters are, quote, extremely motivated to vote ahead of these midterms coming up in 2026, compared to 50% of Republicans and Republican-leaning voters. Why? Because Trump is the great equalizer. No matter how fractured or disillusioned Democrats feel about their own party, Trump is such a polarizing figure that he unifies them. Democrats don't need to be in love with their party to show up. They just need to be clear-eyed about who's sitting in the Oval Office. So here's the suggested path forward. Democrats can fight over ideology in 2028, when the Trump era finally ends and a real debate over the party's soul can take center stage. But in 2026, the mission is way simpler. Unity is not optional. Call it a temporary truce. Progressives and centrists don't have to agree on everything, but they do have to agree on one thing: stopping Trump's grip on Congress. If Democrats want to win, they'll need less navel-gazing, more coalition building, and a message that goes beyond "we're not Trump." Because fear might open wallets, but hope is actually what gets people to the polls.
I mean, you're right that pathological dislike of Donald Trump is the thing that unites the Democratic Party. Of course, Trump himself won't be on the ballot in the midterms or again on the presidential election ballot.
If he can have anything to do with it, he's going to try.
I mean, I actually don't think Democrats will have much trouble working up maybe not exactly the same level of fury toward J.D. Vance or whoever it is, probably J.D. Vance. But I think
it'll be a little bit less, honestly.
Maybe it'll be less.
He seems more reasonable in a debate setting, even.
Having a common enemy will not be their problem. Their problem is, you're right, that there's a substantial progressive faction or further left faction, and then a substantial, it's really two parties. I mean, AOC has said this. It's crazy that she and whoever, the most moderate senator is from the Democratic Party, that they share a party. But they do share a party, and that they need a candidate that picks a direction. And I think
Republicans don't need that, right? You said Trump just picks, and he's maybe the anomaly, but he just picks what he thinks works. But he doesn't align with traditional conservative values. We talk about that all the time and how MAGA calls him on some of those things, and then older Republicans call him on other things, and he's like, I'm not doing either.
The dynamic in the Republican Party is different because it's just Trump is in charge, and then you're right that there's the more Nat Con, Steve Bannon, populist faction. There's more like libertarian tech people like Elon Musk, but Trump is just Trump, and you're competing for him to agree with you on issue by issue, to agree with your faction issue by issue. That's how it works on the Republican side. The Democratic side does not have that phenomenon. There's not some leader they're looking to persuade to be more progressive or less progressive. Rather, they are competing to have a leader of the progressive faction, someone like Bernie Sanders or AOC or whoever, win the nomination, or on the Democrat or on the more moderate side, someone like Josh Shapiro or I don't know who else, Jared Polis, or and then you have people like Gavin Newsom and Kamala Harris who I think are quite progressive, but progressives hate them, and they're not really centrist either. And I don't know. They kind of transcend those categories, but not in ways that actually help them. And it's a mess on the Democratic side.
My best advice, as it is a mess, is to bump all that. The midterms are coming up, and there's enough that Trump is doing wrong, since that is the galvanizing thing, to say, hey, let's talk about this. Your Medicaid might go away. Check out the big, beautiful bill. Look at how the immigration is going, just making people scared in your community that are not criminals. There's so many things they can look to say, okay, maybe Americans don't feel this way. And there are a lot of conservative voices or people who have aligned with Trump in the past, like Joe Rogan, speaking up about some of the things that he's doing around immigration, or Megyn Kelly saying, if we go into Chicago, that doesn't feel like something that as much as I like President Trump, I don't think is a good thing. So there's policies and this criticism, Marjorie Taylor Greene, we talked about yesterday, so many things. Epstein, she just disagrees across the board for the most part lately. So there's so many things that Democrats can just point to say, we'll do something different, but don't just only stop there and say, we're only Trump. They have to first unify, just start with saying, cool, we support Mamdani. Just say that. And because it's just like we are supporting somebody.
Well, that's
such
easy
disarray.
To do when it's because Mamdani's just running to be mayor of New York City. And similarly with the midterms, the congressional races, you need to, the candidate in Kansas is different than the candidate in California. Fine. But when time comes to have a national...
But time is not here right now.
That's when they're going to be in for some trouble, because I think if the progressives don't get their way again, that's 3 in a row, I think they're going to be really unhappy. They're going to say, we keep losing because you don't let our candidate be the candidate. Now, I don't know that I think Bernie, who had some crossover appeal, actually probably would have performed well in 2016. I'm less clear about that in the more recent elections. In 2016, I do plausibly think he would have won. But they have that narrative, and they could just stay home, and they could tank the whole nomination or the whole candidacy of the.
Yeah, I haven't followed up. Obviously, I'm not embedded within the Democratic Party to know what the real high-level conversations are. I read the New York Times and find out that they're trying to find their own Joe Rogan and nonsense like that. And my best advice as somebody who thinks that, there is a big L that happened in 2024 and it's time to move forward, is to just unify right now. Because obviously what they're yelling and screaming with their silence is that they need more time to organize and come up with what the next iteration of this party looks like. Because I don't know that the centrist Democrat is really going to work anymore. Somebody who's trying to just be nice to everybody or going up there campaigning, saying something totally different than how they campaigned locally or governed locally. So that's also going to be a problem. But while they hash that out amongst themselves and come up with all their crazy solutions to spend millions of dollars, just support the candidates that are locally, just talk about all the things that Trump's doing wrong, and also just lay out a couple policies that maybe the party can agree on, because there are enough things like, okay, we want to make sure people have medical coverage, right? Like the extension of affordable. I mean, we're going to talk about it today, whether it happens, whether the government shuts down. So I think there's very simple ways to communicate with your base without saying, okay, the whole party's direction looks like this for 2028.
Next up, the superintendent of the Des Moines Public School District has been arrested by ICE. Next, what we're learning about Dr. Ian Roberts. Stay with us.